How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact, and that was me playing the Ocarina. Not of time, but of bread. Can you believe it? The Ocarina of Bread. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, because you never know, it may help me to get more bread, which I just threw away. I don't believe in wasting food. Don't worry, I will be washing that off and cooking it later. It's uncooked. It's a sort of half-baked little baguette, you know. Anyway, sorry about the rambling. Today I've got a wicked bass for you guys that I'm going to explain how I made it, but I'm not going to drop this one for free because it's dope, and I'm going to save this for my next Vital Preset pack, which will be a little while still, but we'll get there. It's called the Demon in Chains because it has a demonic sound to it, and I've also used a little bit of the phase modulation tip from the last couple of videos on creating a couple of extra modulation chains that are a bit random and have provided some interesting and better results than I could have done without them. So that's very exciting. Let's have a quick listen to the Demon in Chains with the little drum loop that I've got. All the drums are like the individual hits from my sample pack. If you haven't got that, highly recommend it. Links for that down below. Also, if you like my channel and you support what I do, check out my Discord down below. Also, if you're interested in mentorship, you can book in directly from my calendar via my website. It syncs up to your time zone. You can see like if I have slots available and just book yourself in for a session. I'm always happy to teach and I'll be there ready and waiting. Anyway, let's get into today's video, The Demon in Chains. So it's a really, really cool bass, if you don't mind me saying. And I think I chose a nice sort of selection of drums here as well. Made a funky little rhythm. And then I, designed the patch around the drums because I like to have a sort of anchor of a beat so that I can start to manipulate the audio, with a rhythm to it, because that's, contextually it will make a lot more sense while you're designing a sound if there's already a rhythm. It makes things a little bit easier, pardon me. Anyway, I'll quickly tell you about these macros that make it a Demon in Chains specific bass. So again, what I did on the last video was I got my main modulation, and then I end up modulating the slider of this with a new modulation, and then modulating that modulation slider with another new modulation. So those are the chains. So I'll quickly show you what they sound like. So that's flat. Then I've got the chain 1 on. Then the chain 1 and 2 on. And then I've got also a demon mode, which is just going to be playing with the texture of the sound. So really, really tasty patch in my opinion. Let's walk through the initial voicing. So we're going to start off with a saw wave, and that's going to go into a low, low, low sine wave, and then that's going to go in parallel with another sine wave, which is a little bit higher up. So starting off with the saw wave, I'm going to turn that down, turn the level down, and then add in my next low subby sine wave. And I'm going to FM from oscillator 1 to bring that saw wave in. And the main sort of movement and modulation is coming from the amount of the FM. So I've got that on my LFO1, on this saw down curve here, and a little bit on this high pass mode as well. Just gives a bit of extra bend and a bit of extra dynamic interest to that oscillator 1. Then we're going to jump into oscillator 3, and this one's going to come in from oscillator 2. So let's plug that one in. But it's going to run in parallel, so I'm not going to turn the level down. because I'm going to keep them both up. It's a bit of a better mix. You know, the overall output sounds better when they're up together. And you never really know, you know, if it's going to be best to have the level off when you're doing the FM. So it's best just to check, you know, which combinations work together. And then I've got a little bit of noise in the sample section. Pink noise, the level is up like not all the way. And then it's filtered, taking out a lot of the low end here. And I've actually LFO'd this sort of filter cutoff to come back a little bit. So it kind of pops in the mix a little bit more interestingly. So we've got a nice bit of crunchiness in the high end, you know, and a bit of texture that we can play with when we sort of move on to enhance the sound. But also you notice that the unison is all at one, so there's no real detuning going on. However, I have detuned this middle oscillator here. This is very important. This really gets that sub bass and the mid bass to separate a bit more and gets it bouncing a little bit more and gets a nicer, more powerful dynamic result. So I'm really genuinely excited to tell you about it, my G's. Really, I am. Yeah, so anyway, let's jump over to how we can enhance the sound with some effects. So I'm using 4 main effects to enhance the sound. I'm using the chorus to spread everything that we've done just a little bit to widen the whole result as it is. Then I've got the compressor to add in like a little bit of extra saturation and sort of harmonics and volume. And then I've got distortion to give a real gritty undercrunch, that's a word, to the whole sound. And then I've got an EQ to further fill out the holes in the mid-range which could be missing. And then you can see I've got a filter on here, but this is actually only going to be activated when we use the demon mode because it's going to change the tone of the sound along with the FM. So we're going to modulate the FM to come up slightly at the same time mixing up the filter, and that's going to create the demon effect. But we don't need that right now. We're just enhancing the sound. So with the chorus, again, I've tracked it to the freeze mode, so the voices don't move unless I tell them to. So I've said, hey, Mr. Voices, please move around. So I've tracked them to the LFO 1. Delay's going up, delay 1's going down. And then I've just mixed in the depth, and I've also put the LFO, the main LFO, on the mix. So as the sound goes, you know, as it goes boom, boom, it sort of opens up at the high point, you know, in the mix. Just a nice little bit of movement on the chorus. So the compressor then, attack is all the way up, release is about halfway, and then I've just, again, plugged in the LFO to the mix to give it a dynamic saturation almost. Next up, we got the distortion, and this is just kind of running flat on the sine fold mode. Shout out to Larry David, and it's 1.635 dB. And this is like, yeah, this is just changing everything at this point because it's, you know, it's distorting the low end, and that's affecting the high end, and everything is kind of being distorted together. But for me, that, you know, that result is ideal. Like, it sounds great to me. Like, it's got this really distorted character, but it hasn't actually destroyed the low end, in my opinion. It still sounds pretty clean when you really listen down there. It's kind of just distorted all the high end and the high parts, you know, it sort of blended all the high parts together but retained the low end power. So I like that. Then I've got the EQ, and I've just done a mid-range boost. I think, let's see where this is, around 167, just because it kind of lacked a little bit of sort of low mid-range around there. Now it's really, really full and powerful in the low end. And so that's pretty much the enhancements of the bass done. So now let's just brush over again the kind of movement. So again, you know, I was designing the sound listening to my drums. So if I play it along with them, nice rhythm on this dotted quarter note pattern really excites me. It probably excites a lot of aliens as well, perhaps, that are listening. Anyway, so how we can then use this chain linking phenomenon. All I've done is, you know, it's very, very simple. I've just taken my LFO2, put it onto the slider of LFO1 here, and then I've just, you know, I've done a saw down at quarter notes, not dotted. And that is, you know, by absolute randomness has created that new kind of movement, you know. And again, like I mentioned before with the matrix, you know, when I track the LFO to LFO1 slider, it's going to come up here and it's going to be, you know, already modulating. And so, you know, I've turned it back down to 0, and then I've put my macro on here and turned it up to 1 so I can control the effect. And then same again on the next one. So if I add the chain 2, so we had this like slow kind of effect from the chain 1, and now on the LFO3, you know, I'm just tracking the LFO3 to my LFO2 slider this time. So it's, you know, it's a staggered effect like last time. And yeah, this time it's a saw up at 1/2 dotted, randomly just trying different speeds until I find like a final result that sounds cool with my drums. A bit more of a kind of sweeping in kind of vibe on this one. And again, same thing in the matrix, you know, putting it back to 0 and then tracking it to my macro so I can control it here. And like before, you know, I said, you know, if you had the chain 1 off, it's not going to work. It's going to go back to the original without any chains, because the chain 2 is modulating what we did in the chain 1. So you need to have them all on for you to hear the effect. So bear with me if it's a little bit like overcomplicated and difficult to understand, but basically we are using a little bit of randomization of different speeds to modulate the phase of our main LFO just by modulating this slider, and then again modulating what is modulating that slider, and that just creates different movements that are unpredictable. And you know, you can easily find something that sounds cool and stick with that. So it's using a bit of randomness to create something that you wouldn't, you know, necessarily think of yourself. So it's a little bit of an AI trick, I suppose. But in the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be, you know, selecting and deciding, okay, this is a wicked groove or this is not. So I don't really feel like it's cheating. Anyway, the demon mode, let's crack that on. And quite simply, like I said before, I've just sort of ramped up the FM slightly for the demon. So you can see it just creeps up a bit, so it gets a little bit more intense. And at the same time, we activate our filter here on the main effects section. Nice phaser positive filter, which has a little bit of an LFO movement to it in the mid-range here as well. And you know, you could mix in this demon effect to find like a balance as well. Because right here at the bottom, it's a little bit of a roller. It's quite nice and dark, but you know, still a bit Neurofunk. But with the demon mode on, it's really a lot more Neurofunk, you know. And obviously, when you activate the chains, it's still going to do the same movement. Just the demon mode is just purely controlling the tone of the sound, you know, by controlling the filter and the FM amount. You know, it's not really changing the movement. So that's the Demon in Chains bass, my G's. Thanks a lot all for watching, and special shout out to the Elite Squad. Even more special shout out to the Fire Team, everyone who supports on Patreon. Wouldn't be doing this without you guys, so bless up. And yeah, have a wicked rest of your day. Don't do anything I wouldn't, for goodness sake.